Chapter 1, Introducing Windows Operating Systems. While Windows is just one of numerous operating systems, our text and our course is primarily focused on Microsoft Windows. More specifically, Windows 7, while we'll be touching on other versions of Microsoft Windows, primarily Windows 7. Our objectives is to learn how Windows interfaces with the users, us, how it interfaces with files or data, folders, software applications, and the actual physical hardware. We're going to learn about tools that are used to support both Windows and the system, and how to pretty much just make our lives, the users, easier. What's an operating system? It's basically the software that controls a computer. But then, what's a computer? A computer is the physical hardware. Four primary functions of an operating system. First is to provide a user an interface, whether that be a graphical user interface or GUI, or a command line. Both are interfaces. It's just different ways to interact with the essentially computer. Second is to manage files and data. Third, manage the hardware. Hardware being the physical components, again, inside the computer, but it could also be outside peripherals like a keyboard or a mouse or a printer, all considered hardware. Fourth and last is managing applications. That's applications or software such as Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, Excel, all of those are applications. While Windows 7 for this class is going to be considered an upgrade to Windows Vista, we're going to use Windows 7 and Vista interchangeably. Every support technician should at least now know basic Windows 7, should be semi-familiar with XP as well, but since XP has reached its end of life, it really is no longer supported, but in the consumer world it's still out there. We're also going to touch on Windows 8 a little bit as well. So essentially, the operating system acts as a mediator between us, the user, our applications, our software like Word or PowerPoint, Excel, and the physical hardware. We don't get to interact with physical hardware at all. So we have to have some form of traffic controller or traffic cop to manage that interaction. That's where the operating system comes into play. One of the big areas that we deal with mostly is our desktop, and that is the initial screen that's displayed when Windows loads. Normally it's a graphical user interface, it's a GUI. It's pretty, we look at it. With Windows 7, we actually got a new interface. It's called Arrow. Arrow has numerous features which we're going to be covering because that's a big portion of Windows 7. What's really interesting about Windows 7 is its new feature Arrow, which actually pretty much just provides this glassy, transparent look to everything. If you look at the top, the bottom, the outer edges of any active window, it's a little bit more see-through. For some people, this is a huge deal. For others, not that big of a deal. It really all depends on personal preference. Another big area for the desktop is the Start menu, and that's pretty much where the username is shown, where he has quick access to all of his major folders, his libraries, utilities like Control Panel, and other features like that. For example, here you see on the right side of the Start menu, we have the author, Jean Andrew, her quick launch documents, pictures, music, games, computer, no longer my computer, it's now renamed to just computer, Control Panel, devices and printers, help and support. Also notice that they got rid of the run dialog box. No longer is there a run. If you actually type in any command at the search program and files area, that acts as the run box. On the left hand side you see commonly accessed programs, normally ranked by whichever program you use first or most. Some other areas of the Windows desktop is how to launch an application. Essentially, we can do that numerous ways, from the Start menu, from the search box. Normally we actually do it from shortcuts. If you ever notice the file that you click on to launch a game, a program, or whatever, if you look on the bottom right hand side of it, it has a little arrow, normally denoting a shortcut. If you want to start or launch a program from the search box, you type in the name of the program. Normally you do not have to type in the entire name. As you start typing, Windows 7 is smart enough to start filling out whatever applications might be similar. If you type in Word, for example, you start WOR, it auto kind of fills in the rest just by learning your habits. Some of the other Windows Arrow features that are there for users are Snap and Shake. Essentially, Arrow Shake, if you just grab an item on your screen and you just turn it left, right, up, down, and just keep shaking it, it will actually minimize everything else on your screen. Versus Snap, which is if you drag the window either all the way to the top of your screen, or to the left, or to the right, it will actually auto maximize when you go all the way to the top. If you go to the left or right, it will actually take up just half your screen, either all the way to the left or all the way to the right. These might seem very trivial, but actually as you start using them and incorporating them into your everyday computer practice, you start realizing just how time-saving they can be. You'll also notice some other areas, like the taskbar notification bar, are also very clear, all part of the Arrow theme. The taskbar specifically is that bottom bar on the bottom of your screen. It also normally has your notification area, which is on the bottom right, normally where your clock's at, and it also houses your start menu, which is all the way on the left-hand side. In Windows 7, it's denoted by the Windows symbol, a Windows flag. No longer does it say just start. The importance of this is kind of knowing where certain things might be. For example, the notification area, it has your open clock and any programs that start with your computer. Any services, anything like that that might run in the background might also be in the notification area. You will notice that if you right-click the taskbar, you can actually get advanced properties to help customize this. Here's an example of Here's a great example of Arrow Peek. If you mouse over any icon in the taskbar, you get a thumbnail view. Again, for this, some people it's very helpful, for others, maybe not, but it gives the end user the ability to customize their experience to however they want to do it. If you right-click anywhere in the taskbar, you get the taskbar and start menu properties window. What's important here is this allows you to customize your taskbar and your start menu, your notification area as well. That way you can have large icons or small icons, auto hide versus having the start bar there all the time. It's really up to the end user how they want to have their experience. That's one of the nice things about Windows is it's fully customizable to the end user, and again, to have the end user have the best experience and the most customization so the end user can pretty much take ownership of it. Another big area for the Windows desktop is the personalization aspect of it. Essentially, the background. For some people this is not that big of a deal, but for others, the background is extremely important. If you want to change the background, you right-click in any open area on the desktop. You choose Personalize, and then you can change the screen resolution, the video, themes if you would like. However, it is important to note here that in order to get Windows Arrow to function, you have to choose an Arrow theme. This is the personalization window. From here, you can choose any themes that you'd like. You can also customize an Arrow theme. For example, you turn on a basic generic Arrow theme, then you customize the background with whatever photo that you would like. You have the ability then to go into the Windows color. The window color is essentially the outer edge of your windows. What color will they be? For some people, again, that might not be that big of an issue. For others, that's something that they absolutely can't live without. Every user has their own experience. Lastly is sound and screensaver. You can set whatever customized sounds that you want, or leave defaults, or you can set a screensaver. It really is up to the end user how they want to customize their experience. I use the word customization maybe 8 times so far, but it's really important to note here that it really is all about the end user and their experience. If they can't customize it, end users don't really function that well. So Microsoft realized that and gave the end user the most customization possible. That way, you can have 10 computers, 10 end users, and almost every end user will probably have a different customization for their look and feel of their desktop. That's one of the nice things about Windows. Let's talk about 2 very useful tools for exploring our computer in terms of data. Everything that we do is going to be data-driven anyway, so our data is going to be important. So how do we access it? The 2 tools that are built into Windows is Windows Explorer and Computer. To access Computer, you normally find it on your desktop. It's there by default, but if it's not there, you can always go to your Start menu. Computers is there. What happens if you don't want to use Computer? You can use the Windows Explorer. Essentially, if you right-click on the Start menu, you can select Windows Explorer there, or if you know some of the shortcut keys, you can hit the Windows button and E, and that will also bring up Windows Explorer. Both of those are critical components for accessing your data. One of the reasons for an operating system is to manage the hard drive. That's where all the data is stored. Whether it be a physical hard drive, an optical drive, like a CD or a DVD, a USB drive, it doesn't really matter. Data is stored on the drive. So how is it stored? It's stored actually in a hierarchy, or in directories, folders essentially. Normally you have your root or just your base drive. If you ever go to computer and you click on C drive is that root. If you have a C and a D drive, you have 2 roots, one for C, one for D. That is just the top level of that tree. Underneath there, you start placing your individual directories or folders. Underneath them, subdirectories or subfolders, and so forth and so forth. Essentially, C drive is your root, and then underneath there, you start placing your key files, or your key folders where you can organize your data. The importance of knowing terminology like root, for example, is most of the time you're told to just save it on the root. But if you don't know what the meaning of root is, you don't know where exactly to save it. So that's one of the important parts for knowing what root is. Do you save files on the root? That's been a very interesting question that's been asked for numerous years. Because we have so much data, we don't want to just clutter our root with just arbitrary data. We want to have some way to organize it. That's why we do our directories and subdirectories, so we can actually classify and categorize and organize our data. It's not just so much for organizing our data, it's also about quick retrieval of that data. If we have mass amounts of data, yet we do not know where it's at, which means we cannot easily access it, that data really does us no good. Understanding the path location. For example, if you ever look at the top portion of your screen when you're in browsing a folder, you'll notice that normally it will say your folder's name. That's actually a path location. If you click on it, for example, we're going to use data/business. How we read this is, we are currently looking at a document letter.doc, that's how we know it's a document. It currently resides in the business folder. But the business folder currently resides on the data folder. So business is a subdirectory of data. Where's data? Data is actually on the root of C. So data is a subdirectory of C. Could data also be a folder? Data is the folder of business, but it could also be a subdirectory or a subfolder because data is also a subfolder of C. So that's kind of interesting. Notice the slashes. The slashes are very important because that denotes a location. C:/, that means you're going underneath C. You go to data, underneath data, another slash, that means you're going into data, looking at data's folder, see what directories are there, business, slash, that's where your document's at. How do we navigate the folder structure? If we don't want to type it, we can actually use some of the GUI built-in tools. One of the nice things about being able to view our folders is, or one of the nice things about the GUI is we can actually view our folders. How do we want to view them? Again, it's customizable depending on your needs or your desire. Here we're actually looking at a thumbnail view or an icon view. You can actually select View and then select which view you want. You can go Tiles, Details. Details just list it as a list, but actually gives more information like last time accessed, folder name, size, things like that. List actually hides the specific details. It really all is about how you want the folders and files to appear to you, the end user. Now there's numerous ways to actually be able to navigate folder structure. You can click on the individual folders, or you can actually click in the path name. It really all depends on what's easier for you. Most people find by clicking on the actual folder, they can drill down a lot easier. However, some people know specifically the path to whatever folder they're looking at, so they prefer to just type it in manually. It really all depends on you and your needs. Notice every window has a search. That search actually searches that folder and all subfolders in that folder. So depending on where you're looking at, that search can change. So one of the major tips is know where you're at. Use the search. Use some of the functions or tools that are there. Here's a great tool also. Let's say you actually want to move from the current folder to its parent folder. You'd actually just be able to click on the little down arrow in the path name. That will allow you to get a drop-down box of all subdirectories of that folder. Allows you to quickly navigate certain areas. Another great tool are libraries. In Windows XP, we had my documents, my music, my pictures, my computer. Now we actually are taking them and making them libraries. So what's a library? If you've ever noticed, if you click on Documents, that will only list what's in Documents. But what happens if we want to be able to store files in multiple locations? That's where a library comes in. We can actually centralize our viewing of those documents to one of our libraries. For example, if we click on Documents, we can go to its properties, and we can actually see that it includes multiple folders. That way, when you go to Library, you can see the folders in all of those areas. That way, for example, you can have music on your hard drive, you can have music in a folder on your desktop, you can have music in another location. You can centralize all of them by including all three of those folders in your music library. That way you can just click on music and it loads all of your music up. One of the important things with customization is knowing how to do it. You can actually go to Options to view folder options by being in any open window, opening Windows Explorer, and actually being able to go up to normally be able to view the folder options. You're looking for Tools, then Folder Options. I'm running Windows 8 at home, so it's not there anymore. You can actually also access folder options by going to Control Panel. which we haven't talked about yet, but I mean there are two ways to be able to access them. Once you're there, what can you do? A big part of being able to change the folder options is, how do you want to be able to view certain data? Do you want to be able to view file extensions, for example? If you do, you can actually turn it on so that every file has its extension shown. For example, if you have text.pdf on your desktop, normally the .pdf, the file extension, is gone. You just show that it's a PDF. What happens if you actually want to be able to see the extension though? You have to go into folder options and turn it on. Let's talk about creating a file. One of the nice things is, you don't actually have to open up a application or software to be able to open or to create a file. If you right-click any open area, you just scroll down to New. Normally we're creating folders here, but you can actually create any other type of document type that you have. You can create an image file, you can create a Word document or an Excel file. You don't actually have to open up Word, for example. It really all depends on how you want to be able to do this though. How do you create a folder? You create a folder the same way you create files. You right-click any open area, scroll down to New, and hit Folder. You give it a name. Normally, you don't want to give it too long of a name, but you want to give it a descriptive name. If you are in Windows 7 or Windows 8, you can also go to the top menu bar, and there should be a quick New Folder button. That again allows you to create a new folder from that location. Let's talk about copying. Cut, copy, paste, move, rename, deleting files and folders. This is important because being able to manage our data is important. Copying versus cutting. Copying allows you to duplicate your data from one location to another location. Normally you'd highlight your data, right-click on it, choose Copy, or you can hit Control-C. That's a shortcut for copy. You'd go to wherever you want to paste it at, and then you would either right-click, hit Paste, or Control-V. That would paste it. The issue with copy is you have duplicate data. You have in your original location one copy of the data, and in your new location you have an identical copy of that data. That means it takes up more space. That's why you have cut. You can cut data from one location, from the original location, and then paste it at a new location. That allows you to completely move from one area, the original area, to your new area. That will not duplicate your data. Now there's pros and cons for both. It really all depends on what you're doing. Normally for me, if I am moving data, let's say to a thumb drive, I will copy the data first. Once I verify that it copied over correctly, I would delete the original data. That way, my data I know is still secured in my new area. How do you delete files? Same way that you cut, copy, and paste them. You highlight what you want to remove, you right-click, delete. Or, if you have just your keyboard, you highlight what you want to delete, you'd hit the delete key, and then you'd verify if you want to delete them or not. Lastly is renaming. Naming of your files and folders is important. Again, you want them somewhat intuitive. It's all about being able to quickly access your data. So if you have folders that don't make any sense, like name-wise, they might not do you any good. How do you rename? You right-click on any folder, any object, file, click Renew or Rename. You actually have that ability, or if you want, you can hit F2. If you select the object, just left-click once on it, hit F2. That is a quick rename. That allows you to quickly rename that object. Everything in Windows that you touch, that you click on, that you move, are objects. Whether it be a file or a folder, they're all objects. How do you select multiple items? There's multiple ways to do this. You can use your mouse to highlight bulk items, but what happens in that bulk item if you accidentally select something that you don't want? You can actually hit the control button, holding it down, click on the files you do not want to add, if they're already highlighted. If they're not highlighted, you can hit control and select more files. What that allows you to do is be more selective of what files you're selecting versus shift. If you click on one file at the very top of a list and you shift and left click on the bottom of that list, it will actually select all items. If you select halfway down the list, it only selects between the 2 points that you're clicking. That's helpful for some people, not everyone. Another quick way to select all files is Control A. That's a shortcut for Select All. One of the next major things we have to talk about is being able to change attributes of those objects. Again, an object is a file or folder. What happens if we want to make a file read-only, or if we want to make it hidden? Normally what we do is we right-click on any object, and then we select what attributes we want it to have. For example, we right-click on Animal List, click on Properties. We can change the attributes at the bottom, make it read-only, hidden, or if we want, we can go to Advanced. We can add ready for archiving, we can compress it, make it smaller, or we can encrypt it. That way, we have full ability to manipulate how those files get accessed. Let's talk about some of the Windows tools that we're going to be discussing in our class. That's going to include System Windows, System Information, Control Panel, Action Center, User Account Control Dialog Box, or UAC, and the Help and Support. First one is going to be our System window. How we access that, if you click on Start, right-click on Computer, go to Properties, that allows us to see what version of Windows we're running, what service pack we have installed, if we have an experience index. It also allows us to look at our computer name, if it's activated or not, and some detailed information like that. We can access it also from Control Panel by going to Control Panel, System Security, and System, same place. Notice this version is Windows 7 Home Premium. Gives us our service pack, gives us our system rating. Essentially, our system rating is a performance test on all the hardware, our video, our processing, our storage, our memory, and then we get, based off of the lowest number, we get an index score. So let's say, for example, we have processor that's rated 5, memory that's rated 5, but we have a hard drive that's rated 3. Our rating would be 3. It takes in all different types of things into account to actually come up with this score. Also notice it lists our processor, our installed memory, including what's usable, and our system type. If it's a 32-bit or a 64-bit, it's also listed there. Underneath there, it also lists our computer name, our domain or workgroup settings. Underneath there, if our Windows is genuine and activated. Next tool is our System Information window. That allows us to look at very specific detailed information about our processor and our BIOS, our RAM installed, what directory our OS is installed. If you're doing a default Windows installation, that should be our Windows folder, hard drive size, and name of currently running drivers. For the hardware class, you should remember that a driver is a software program that controls communication with specific hardware. Here's a view of our system window. Notice it gives us a detailed information of our operating system, what version, or what build. Very specifically, that is what updates are included, what service pack with what updates are all combined to make what specific version you have. If you have a manufactured built PC, let's say for example, we're doing this off a Lenovo, it could be a Dell or an HP, it would list system manufacturer. If you're doing this based off a custom build PC, there won't be a system manufacturer. It lists physical memory, available memory, it lists detailed information. The next tool is the control panel. That's essentially where we can control just about everything. We can do our personalization, we can do any of our customizations, we can do our searches, we can customize pretty much how Windows operates from this location. Normally it's broken down into categories: system and security, network and internet, hardware and sound, so forth and so forth. However, if you actually want to see very specific tools, you can view by icon, and that will actually allow you to see all the tools all at once. The next tool is the Action Center. Bottom right hand corner in the Notification Center, normally you have a flag. Normally you shouldn't have a red X unless there's an error. However, with Windows 7, Action Center is a little bit kind of buggy. One of the nice things about the Action Center is it actually verifies and checks your backups, your antivirus, your drivers. Notice here we're getting a message saying that backups are not set up. That's why we have the red X. So we're actually going to open our Action Center and we're going to see what's going on. Red normally indicates an issue. Yellow indicates something that might raise caution but not really an issue. Green actually dictates okay. So here our virus protection is out of date, or not found. That lets Windows know, hey, there's an issue. Backups are showing as yellow. Not a critical error, but an error nonetheless. What's nice about the Action Center is it does maintenance. It checks your antivirus, checks your anti-adware malware programs, your backups, your updates, making sure that your computer is as protected as it should be. Next is our User Account Control Box. Notice while we're sitting at the Action Center, we have a blue and yellow shield on the left top right hand side. That denotes a program that's going to need administrator access. What's really interesting with the UAC is, before Windows 7, you had to log in as an administrator to your computer to be able to access anything that required administrator rights. In Windows 7, you actually now get prompted. What's nice about that is you can actually set a regular account with no administrator access, so a regular user, and then every time they need to do something that an administrator would do, it would actually prompt them for an administrator username and password. You no longer do you have to log off, log on as an administrator, do the action, log back off, log back on as the user. That's one of the nice tools with the UAC. Another nice tool with the UAC is, even if you're logged in as an administrator, you're not actually an administrator. What I mean by that is, it treats you as a regular user, but when you need those privileges, it gives you that administrator token so that you could be administrator. Once you're done completing that task, it takes that token away from you. What that allows Windows 7 to do is stay more secure. Let's say, for example, you're on the internet, you're browsing a website and you get a virus. In Windows XP, if you are logged in as the administrator, that virus would have administrator access because it infected your user. However, with Windows 7, even if you're logged on as the administrator on Windows 7 and you get a virus, that virus only gets whatever token you have. Normally, unless you're performing administrator tasks, you don't have the administrator token. So that means that virus doesn't have the administrator token, which means it cannot do as much damage as it could before. That's one of the great uses of the UAC. However, it can be extremely annoying. It pops up every time you want to do a specific task. With Windows Vista, it would pop up all the time. Windows 7, they've made it a little bit more intuitive, so it only pops up certain times. Still annoying sometimes, however, most users end up getting used to it, and it actually becomes a blessing the longer that you use it. How does the UAC actually look to the end user though? That's also an important question. You'll notice if you're logged in as the administrator, normally you get the top view. If you're not logged into an administrator, you get the bottom view. Normally, if you're logged in as the administrator, it doesn't need a username and password unless that's how you have it set. All depends on how you have it customized. What's again really nice about this is you could be a regular user trying to do administrative tasks, get prompted, and an administrator could enter his credentials, username and password, so that you could perform that one task. Once you're done with that task, you no longer have the administrator privilege. That's an amazing tool that most people don't really see the benefit of, but it really is amazing. The next tool is the Networking and Sharing Center. You notice if you click on your network properties, whether it be the computer or a wireless connection, if you right click on it, you have the ability to view your Network Sharing Center. If you have a wireless and you have a red X, you can actually right click on it and connect to your network. Or at the bottom of that, you can click on Open Networking and Sharing Center. That looks like this. From here, you can manage your wireless devices, change adapter settings, or change your sharing profiles. We haven't really talked about sharing profiles yet, and we're not going to in this lecture, but that's one of the advanced topics that we're going to talk about. What's interesting to know from here is you have access to your built-in Windows firewall, your internet options, and your adapter settings. This is critical when being able to secure your computer. Also, if you want to set up any other types of connections, you can do that from here as well. The last tool that we cover is Windows Help and Support and the web. If you click on Start, you have your Help and Support tab by default. That allows you to run a Microsoft Help applet essentially. It searches Microsoft's databases for common issues. It also allows you to type in questions to you find answers. Again, it contacts Microsoft's specific servers so that you find only Microsoft responses. Sometimes it's a little bit better to search Google or other search engines first, just that way you can get other information that's not just Microsoft. Not that Microsoft's not worth trusting, it's just sometimes you can get other information out. You can get other information that's out there that might not be Microsoft approved. For example, I ran into issues where I wanted to do a very specific task that Microsoft said couldn't be done. Well, it really could be done, it was just happened that their help system hadn't been updated in quite a while to show you the steps on how to do it. I Googled it and was able to find it. In summary, we're looking at how an operating system works, all of its components and everything. I'm not going to cover all summary topics, but in a nutshell, that's Chapter 1.